Hi. So this video today is going to be where I rebuilt the shelves in the hall closet. My wife did not like the little wire shelves that came in it, and she wanted them replaced with 5 built-in wooden shelves. To kind of make the video make more sense, because it felt a little choppy as I was watching the edit, I first removed the wire shelving. I then took the piece of plywood, and while my wife filmed, I ripped the shelves to the sizes that I needed. I had already measured the hall closet. It was 48 inches wide, which is the same width as the plywood. My next step was then I had to cut supports out, which there's 3 supports for each shelf. Your back support, 48 inches wide, and then your front supports, which are a total of 20 inches wide, including the half inch and a half from the back support. I don't think I explained that I was making those measurements when I cut. Then I did do a little bit of trim work. I did a little bit of painting, just kind of made it prettier than it normally would need to be. Then the last part of the video, I was installing the shelves actually into the closet, and I did not show filling all the holes. I've got other videos showing the hole or filling holes to show you how to do that. Same exact principle. I'm just kind of doing this as a hobby. My video quality is probably not great. I'm learning this. I was playing with tools when I was a kid, not cameras, not video equipment, so this is all new to me. And I'm just putting things up on YouTube in case just some average guy that hadn't really done a lot could feel like they could do it, to see how to. And nobody sponsors me. If anybody did, I'd let you know, but these are just the tools that I happen to have bought, and they're my hobby, so that's why I have them. Anyway, enjoy the video, and if you feel like you could click like, I would appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to remove the original builder grade, and it's really just as simple as popping it loose. This crossbar may be a little bit tight. There it goes. And the rest should pretty much lift out. It kind of snaps in there. But it's just nails. So it's really just a matter of getting a grip on each piece and then pulling it out. And of course you're going to have to patch all of these holes. I'm going to wait until I have the new shelves in, because the holes might be covered by some of the shelves. Alright, so the first shelves that we're going to make 5 shelves. 2 of them for the top will be 12 inches wide. The remaining 3 will be 20. I'm going to walk you through how to cut the 12-inch one. It's going to be the same process with all of them. The first thing I've done is I'm going to set out this guide and lock it down at 13¼ inches. The reason you you set the guide at 13¼ inches is because with your saw, which is now not plugged in, the guide is going to hit against either side of this area I'll be cutting from. It will hit at this side. You've got to measure and see that it's 1¼ inch to the outside of the blade. So once you know you've got your 1¼ inch there, you add that to the length that you're cutting, so that when the saw is hitting the blade or hitting the guide, the blade will be hitting the line that you want to cut. So the next step, take your carpenter's square, and you're going to want to make sure that you're getting a square cut. That this is set square. You can see right now it's running down the board and it's running flush against the guide. I've also got the guide set. I'm going to mark on each side so the guide is set there. Let's clamp it down. You don't have to use one of these guides. You could buy or take a good straight 2x4 and a couple of clamps and follow the same process, but make sure, whatever you do, that you've got a straight board and you've got it square. So now, let me grab my safety glasses. This circular saw has a laser beam, which helps a little bit, but you can eyeball and see that the blade is going to hit right at my 12-inch mark. I'm going to follow that all the way down. Pause it. Best advice with a saw I got from my grandfather: before you make your cut, line up your blade, then locate all of your fingers, and then begin the cut. And so far, that's been 90% foolproof for me. Alright, we got a little help. Alright, for safety's sake, we're going to use the table saw on this last rip. It's kind of just by luck that we need to cut off 11 3/4 inches of the last piece to have our 20-inch piece. So if you want to come over here, I've got Handy Wife as the aid. We're going to set the fence, they call it. See, it goes out to 12. We're going to set it at 11 3/4. So that's 11 1/2, 11 3/4. And again, you always cut once but measure twice. I'm just going to check 11 3/4. Okay, so now that we've got the rails set, table saws are a little bit scary. Where I told you a moment ago to find all your fingers before you make the cut, that rule is for table saws. It's very easy to run your hand under the blade or into the blade. They're also loud, and they throw the dust right into your face, so make sure you've got your glasses on. The key to a table saw is once you set your rail, keep the edge of your board on the rail. And don't pause too much or the blade will actually burn the wood. Check our measurement, 20 inches on the dot. And now we've got all 5 of our shelves with a little 12-inch leftover cut. Okay, well, it's a hot, steamy evening here in Houston. Continuing work. Next thing I'm going to be doing is I will be cutting the supports for each shelf. And things to keep in mind. You have to really be mindful of the size of the material you are working with. Get my safety glasses here. These are 2 by 4 by 8 boards. 2 inches by 4 inches by 8 feet. The problem, though, when you drop a tape measure on it, is that it measures out to be 7 feet, 8.5 inches. Because you don't actually get an 8-foot long board anymore. That would, they've discovered it's cheaper to go ahead and cut it a little shorter. So I need 5 48-inch long boards for the back of each shelf. And just going to mark that right on 48 inches. Something to keep in mind whenever you're using any saw is that the blade takes some material away, turns it into sawdust. So, line your blade up with just to the outside of your line. So if you've got your 48 inches line here, and This is the piece you want 48 inches long. Line your blade up to hit right on the edge of that line. With a miter saw like this, you want the board back against the rails. You want it as square as you can get it. Make a nice quick little chop. So I'm going to show you little things that I've kind of figured out here just by experience to save lumber and minimize waste. We're doing 3 12-inch shelves, and I'm sorry, 2 12-inch shelves and 3 20-inch shelves. That means that we're going to need 2 12-inch supports for each of the 12-inch shelves. So if you look at this board, we can get one 12-inch shelf or support. We can get a second 12-inch support. And then we would have 20.25 inches left over. So we could really, out of this board with minimal waste, go ahead and get our 20-inch, one of our 20-inch supports also, and then just have a little chunk to throw away. Alright, I'm going to show you really quickly. On these supports, I'm going to bevel the support, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a finished look than just having a 2x4 sticking, screwed straight to the wall. And this is only going to be on the side supports because you'll see it from the front. So the way I did that, I'm trying to film this and use the tape measure one-handed. So I measured 1.5 inches down from the top, and I measured 2 inches back. And then I simply used a straight edge to mark my line across. Now the way I do it, I'm sure there's a smarter way to do this, but it's what's worked for me. You gotta lock it down good with the saw. I then move my blade, the angle on my saw, which is a sliding miter saw, till it matches the angle that I'm cutting. Alright, I have now gotten all of my boards cut to the right length, laid everything out, decided what the front and the back will be, because obviously there's no reason in painting a part that's going to be against the wall. I'm putting more time into these shelves than needs to be put into them. You could easily just cut out the 2x4s to the length, cut out the plywood to the length, and go, you could even nail it to the walls in the closet. But I'm just really looking for a finished look. Since I'm only in these the cost of material, I want this to look like we spent a lot of money or was better than just hiring your average handyman. One little thing I'm going to do is, rather than just leave the face of the shelves looking like so, you can buy this 3/4 flat trim at Lowe's, and it just gives it a much more finished look. And I have a grab gun, little just Harbor Freight special, probably have $75 in the whole set. It's fine. This is a small air compressor. It's fine for tiny little jobs like I do, especially since I wanted to keep my investment light. With a piece of trim like this, you can use these short nails. I think these are 1.25 inch short brads. Kind of working one-handed here, but we'll load the nail gun, and I'll come back in just a second and show you just 3 or 4 brads, and we'll have this on. Alright, really don't need a clamp for this. I'm just using a clamp because I have only got one hand. My tripod has not arrived yet. So we're going to go ahead and put our first brad here. Didn't get a good seal, or didn't go all the way down. We'll tap it down later, but we're just going to follow that across. And like I say, 4 will be enough. I'm not going to film the process because I only have one hand, and handy wife is out shopping. Okay, so we're going to paint the shelves now. And use a roller for rough covering because we're trying to get some stuff done here. We're trying to make some motion. It takes a lot less time. This kind of painting does take a lot of paint. So I may be taking a trip back up to the hardware store to get this color matched before it's all said and done. nice even layer. This plywood was already pre-sanded, so it looks like we're going to get a really good coat here with minimal prep work. And I'm going to continue on until we're finished with this. Alright, so we're going to begin painting. Just the sides that will actually show. And if anybody's wondering why I tend to be using these sponges, I had asked Candy Wife on one of her many trips to Dollar Tree that she does to pick up a couple of bags of these for me because they were good. They're just good for handy little cheapo brushes that you're going to throw away as soon as you're done. Well, she loves to save money at the Dollar Tree, so she bought me like 15 bags of them. So I've got 100 of these things sitting around, and might as well use them. I mean, I'm not building a watch right now, so this is not the Sistine Chapel. Just got to lay a little paint on it, make it look a little better. So they're doing fine. They just get a nice little coat of paint. We'll probably come back. We'll see. We'll probably come back and do a second coat. We'll just see how it lays down. This is the same color as our closet doors and trim. So I'm going to get everything painted today. I don't love the painting and the finishing side because it takes forever. You know, you've got to paint one side, then you've got to let it dry, then you've got to come back out and probably do a second coat, then you've got to let that dry, then you've got to flip it over, and you know, you've got to let it dry for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours or overnight. You know, if you're working like me in the evenings and you go to work the next morning, you don't come back out until, 24 hours has passed. So you can spend 3 days getting virtually nothing done. I like the part where I'm building, I'm constructing, I'm making noticeable differences. But I'll go through this painting process. The next time you see these, they will be getting drilled and prepped for the wall. All right, so I've kind of brought the workshop into the house at this point. I've brought my sawhorses in. I've got all of my lumber, my supports, my shelves, basic tools. I've got drill bits, my screws, a level, a stud finder, and of course the cordless drill and tape measure. And what I'm about to do is I'm going to locate the studs. You'll have to find studs to mount anything with any kind of weight, or else the screws will just rip right out of the wall. So this is my stud finder. It's a Zertec. I think I paid $20 for it at Home Depot. It's got the stud scan, the deep scan. Any stud finder you buy, I recommend buying one that is electronic. You can buy the old magnetic ones. All they do is look for the nails in the sheetrock and the drywall. And if you find a nail that's not into a stud, that does you no good. Another important feature, and most of them have this, but check, is that it does search for electrical wires. If it senses electricity, it'll warn you. That's good because you don't want to drive a nail or a drill bit through an electrical wire. So I'm just going to go from one line of the closet to the other, and I'm going to locate the studs. Which is not looking... There we go. So there's one. Another one. Let's go ahead and mark where they're at. And then I'm going to use a level the studs run vertically from top to bottom, so I'll be able to use a level and mark up and down for my other studs. I may have to get a little. Let's see. Now what do we expect? So this is the problem. There's always little headaches that come up while you're working on something. I would expect there to be, on these small walls, a stud about this far. On this wall, that's exactly what we have. On this wall, you've got a stud here and nothing here. This is why I'd never pay to have anything done if there's any way I can do it, because the company that comes out and builds or sets something up for you, their owners charge a fortune. Their workers are all too often unhappy people that have a drug problem, that don't want to be there, and they make $8 an hour, and they just do sloppy work and cover it up, knowing that 98% of the people that have the end product won't know how to hold a screwdriver and will have no idea that there's something wrong. So you've got to improvise. I have one stud to work with that's approximately 6 inches off the back corner. That's not going to be stable enough. I'm going to have to, where my back support and my side support join, I'm going to have to put a pocket hole in each of those and then screw them into the back support. And even then it's not going to be as strong as I want it to be. But when you're dealing with, and it doesn't matter how much you spend on a house. I'll guarantee you $1 million house built by $1 million crew does just the same kind of crap behind the walls that you can't see. So it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of sloppy work. And you've got to figure out how to improvise through it. Quick trick I'm going to show you. Rather than spend all kinds of time with the stud scanner, the studs run vertically. So I'm just going to go and periodically mark where my studs are with a straight edge. The level's helpful. You know, I'm using pencils, and I'll be erased. It can be. It can be painted over. As you see, I'll probably have to do a lot of paint work in here. The next thing we're going to want to do is our first shelf is going to be, let me double check my plans, it's going to be 29 inches off of the floor. The top of the shelf will be 29 inches off the bottom of the floor. So we have to remember the plywood that I'm putting on top. Let me see if I need to adjust this a little bit here. The plywood I'm going to be putting on top is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. So to get the top of the shelf 29 inches high, I need to subtract 3/4 of an inch from the 29 inches. Therefore, the top of my support will need to be 28 1/4 inches off of the floor. And this is a really cheap tape measure I got for free at Harbor Freight, but it actually has numeric markings as for what the partial inches is. It makes it really easy. So I'm just going to make a series of marks at 28 1/4 where I want my support, my first support, to land. Of course, we'll use the level also to make sure these supports are level. Given the quality of the workers on this house, it wouldn't blow my mind that the floor was out of level. Alright, one thing that the crew that built the house actually did an appropriate job on with the back piece is they set the studs at 16 inches as they're supposed to be. So I'm going to drill guide holes, which don't have to be very large. In fact, you want them to be narrow because you want the threads of the screw to bite along it. Still didn't have my chuck set quite tight enough. One thing I am going to do though, because I'm doing this myself and I can afford the time, is I'm going to countersink my screws. This is a 3/8 inch bit, which is at the maximum capacity for this small drill, but it's also just the size of the head of the screw. You can buy a tool for countersinking. but I'm a little cheap. And I'm just going to sink just a tiny little bit. Ooh, that's a little bit much. It's a little tricky, but just enough so that the head of my screw goes down below the wood, and then I'm going to fill it in with a little wood filler, sand it, and paint over it. I just want this to look very, very neat. Alright. Actually, I had to trim this slightly. I cut it at exactly 48 inches, which would have fit, except that at 48 inches it was just starting, it was gouging into the wall. So I took a blade's width off of it. Double check my measurement here. This is the part where a spouse handy wipe would be very useful, but I did tell her that she doesn't need to be here, so we're okay. I'm going to show you how to do this one-handedly so that it's not so critical. There we go, 28 1/4. So I've got a ratchet driver here, or impact driver here. You don't have to have one for this job, but if you do, it's really, really nice. A screwdriver is more than adequate. A cordless drill is more than adequate, but these just have a lot more torque. Just don't go drive it all the way in. It's as simple as that. That way, you can make your fine-tooth adjustments. And get it at dead level. I think I'm going to go with a little bit light, a smaller drill for my guide hole. The reason I love these ratchet drivers is it sucks it up good and tight up against the wall. Yeah, there you go. That's good and solid. That's not going anywhere. I'm going to drill the guide holes for my side piece, show you how I put that in, and then I'm going to drill my pocket hole in my side piece and show you how to make up for other people's mistakes. Alright, so I'm going to put my pocket hole in to give this a little added strength. I've also drilled 2 holes to go into the stud so that I don't want this being tippy at all. This is a Harbor Freight brand pocket hole jig. It's worked great. A lot of people do use the Craig jig, which is about twice as expensive, and I like to save a little money where I can. You just simply, for this you can eyeball it. It's not really going to be seen. So I just eyeballed where the center of the 2x4 is. And then for 2x lumber, you would go into this hole, and it guides. There you go. Then you unlock it. We've got a nice little pocket hole drilled, so now I'll be able to get a good solid corner on this. Okay, so I'm back. I went out to my garage and I drilled the pocket hole. I think I'll probably make the pocket hole video, a separate video showing how to drill a pocket hole. I followed the exact same steps here and get this level as I can. I'm going to use my impact driver. Snug it up. Good and level. Pull it up tight against the wall. And if you're wondering why I'm switching battery packs between these 2 tools, I do have a battery pack for each. This is a new tool. It's the first 12-volt drill I've had in my life. And I'm curious how capable it is on these small battery packs. So, we do need to get a special head for these pocket screws, so just a moment. Alright, so I've got my special head on this dribble. I'll put an extender on it just so I can make sure I mount it good and tight. We've already got it level. And probably overbuilding this. But every little bit helps. So we're ready to try to set the shelf in. For the sake of illustration, I'm going to go ahead and screw this down, but I'll probably unscrew it just because we don't have a lot of room to work with. And I want each. Oh, there we go. Oh my God. Getting back into builder grade work. The reason I'm not going to screw them all down until I've got them all in is I'm probably going to have, I feel like to get all of these in as tight as it's going to be, I'm going to end up having to move them around as I work. This is my problem with builder grade. I build everything to be square. Look at the gaps. Look at that. Okay, that's not flush there. Over here it's flush. This little closet in itself is probably a ½ inch out of square. So don't think you can't do something because the professionals can't do as good as you can. It's not even really level. It's close to level, but as I said, probably the floor is not completely level. The moral of the story is don't be afraid to do it yourself. You'll do a better job than what you can pay for. I nearly guarantee it. Alright. So kind of reviewing my video, I noticed two things. One, I look like Mr. Wilson, or Wilson off of Home Improvement because you can't really see my face, just cuts off at my chin. And that is because I'm using the tripod to film. I don't have somebody filming me. And I'm trying to focus on the work with the video. Another little thing is you have to be willing to improvise on these jobs. And don't be afraid, don't be hard on yourself. One of the things I've learned as I'm doing this is the first time I've put shelves like this in. It's one of the easier projects I've done, but it's the first time I've done this project. As you can see, I've already built up all of my supports. The problem with that is it makes it too tight to put the shelves in. So I'm going to end up having to take off, I'll probably shoot for the left, try to take the left support off on each one so that I can kind of angle these in. So I'm going to go ahead and show you now that I'm to that point. And this is tight, I mean, it's a 48-inch closet and 48-inch shelves. But it does lay down okay when you have that support out. So let's see, let me readjust my angle here slightly. I'm just going to go, I've already pre-drilled just like I did on the supports. I'm just going to quickly adjust my screws and actually anchor this down. This is where this small 12-volt drill is going to be nice. Make sure you get enough, long enough screw to bite into the 2x4. You're going to, in a tight, compact place like this, a tight, compact drill is good. I have to say, this little 12-volt drill's done a good job. It is not going to be a replacement for an 18-volt. Just from this project, the first battery is nearly dead. And even though Ryobi does not sponsor me, they don't know I'm alive, I do miss some of the features on my far cheaper Ryobi drill. But there we go. The first one's installed, so I'm going to remove, kind of show you here. I'm now going to put this support back on. I'm going to remove this support. I'm going to follow the process all the way up, and we'll have it in. Alright, I have all 5 shelves installed. I probably would have gone with 4 shelves if I was building this myself, but you have to build it to the customer's specifications. In this case, Handy Wife. I see where I need to tighten that down a little bit at the top there, no big deal. Handy wife wanted 5. All that's left is clean up. I need to get the shop vac in here, clean up some dirt, fill all these holes. Not one single hole was covered by the new shelves, so I get to patch and paint every single one of them. But that's fine. It's going to add a lot more storage. It's a lot sturdier. These are true wooden built-in shelves that when I have them finished, and I'll flash it when I'm done, I'll give it a quick show when I finish filling everything in, it's going to be seamless. Not a bad project. Alright, well everything's done. Paint's still drying a little bit, so you can probably see where I painted over the holes. But all the holes are patched. Everything's finished. All the screws are countersunk. The trim's in. And just has a nice finished little look. Definitely a lot more room in the closet. Really, the finishing didn't add a lot of time to the project. Maybe an hour and a half tops. But we are done.